Daniel stepped carefully over the rocky terrain, his boots crunching against the dry soil. The alien planet was silent except for the occasional whisper of wind, carrying the scent of something old, something forgotten. He had come here searching for lost knowledge, but he never expected to find anything truly extraordinary. His fingers traced the strange markings on the massive stone structure before him. The symbols were ancient, carved deep into the weathered surface. They felt familiar, even though he had never seen them before. As he studied the carvings, he heard a sudden movement behind him. He spun around, his heart pounding. Standing a few feet away was a girl, not human, but alien. She had deep violet eyes that seemed to glow under the dim light of the planet's twin moons. Her dark blue skin shimmered slightly, and her silver hair cascaded down her back. She wore a long, flowing robe with patterns that reminded him of the symbols on the ruins. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice sharp but filled with something else. Concern, or maybe fear. Daniel raised his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. "I didn't mean to trespass," he said. "I'm just an explorer." The girl's eyes narrowed. "This place is sacred. Outsiders are not welcome." Daniel hesitated. He knew he should leave, but something held him in place. His gaze drifted back to the ancient carvings, and before he realized it, his lips moved, whispering the words etched into the stone. The moment the words left his mouth, a strange energy filled the air. The ruins trembled slightly, as if awakening from a deep sleep. The alien girl gasped, her eyes widening in shock. She took a step back, her expression a mix of awe and terror. "Impossible," she whispered. You know the ancient tongue of my ancestors." Daniel frowned. "I just read the words. I don't even know what they mean." The girl stared at him as if he had just broken the laws of the universe. "No one speaks that language anymore. It was lost generations ago. Only the greatest rulers of my people once spoke it." Her voice trembled. "How do you know it?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't. I swear." It just felt natural to say. The ground beneath them vibrated again, and suddenly, the carvings on the wall began to glow with a soft blue light. The alien girl gasped again and took another step back. "This is not possible," she muttered. "The ruins, they are reacting to you." Daniel felt a strange pull, like something deep inside him was responding to the ancient structure. He placed his hand against the stone, and the glow grew brighter. Images flickered in his mind, visions of towering cities, great temples, and beings that looked both human and alien, standing together as equals. The girl clenched her fists. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I'm just a human," Daniel said, still trying to process what was happening. She shook her head. "No, you are something more." The ruins pulsed again, and Daniel felt a surge of energy rush through his body. He stumbled back, breathing heavily. The symbols on the wall shifted, rearranging themselves into something new. The alien girl's expression hardened. "You have awakened something that was meant to stay buried." Before Daniel could respond, a deep, echoing sound rumbled from within the ruins. The wind picked up, swirling dust and debris around them. The girl's eyes darted around, her posture tense. "You need to leave," she said urgently. "Now." Daniel hesitated. "But what is this place? Why is it reacting to me?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned away and started walking briskly toward the darkness beyond the ruins. Then she stopped and looked over her shoulder. "If you value your life, you will not come back here." Daniel watched her disappear into the shadows. He looked back at the glowing carvings, his mind racing with questions. He had come here searching for knowledge, but now he had found something much bigger. He knew he couldn't just walk away. Whatever mystery lay hidden within these ruins, it was connected to him in ways he didn't understand. And he wasn't going to stop until he found the truth. Daniel stood there for a long moment, staring at the glowing symbols on the stone wall. His heart was still racing. The alien girl's reaction had been clear. She was afraid. But why? Why would speaking an old language cause such a strong reaction? And why did these ruins react to his voice? The wind howled softly as the glow from the ruins began to fade. Daniel exhaled and took a step back, his mind filled with questions. He knew he should leave, but something inside him refused to walk away. He had come to this planet looking for forgotten history, and now he had found it. He needed answers. A sound came from behind him. Soft footsteps on the rocky ground. He turned quickly, half expecting to see the alien girl again. Instead, she was already standing there, watching him with cautious eyes. "You didn't leave," she said. Her voice was calmer now, but still guarded. Daniel shook his head. "I need to understand what's happening here. Why did these ruins react to me? What did I say?" She hesitated, then took a slow breath. "You spoke the words of my ancestors, words that have not been spoken in 1,000 years." Daniel frowned. "But I don't even know your language. I just read what was on the wall." "That doesn't matter," she said. "No one should be able to read it. Not even my people. The knowledge was erased long ago." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Erased. Why? She glanced around, as if checking to make sure they were alone. Then, after a moment, she gestured for him to follow. "Come with me," she said. "If you truly want to understand, then you must see for yourself." Daniel hesitated for only a second before stepping forward. They walked in silence through the ruins, the alien girl leading the way. She moved quickly, her steps light and careful. Daniel followed, his eyes scanning the dark passageways. The walls were covered in more symbols, but none of them glowed like before. After a few minutes, they reached a hidden doorway, half covered by vines and debris. The girl placed her hand on a carved panel, and the door slid open with a deep, rumbling sound. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he stepped inside. The chamber beyond was massive, stretching far into the darkness. But what shocked him the most were the images on the walls. Huge murals, carefully painted and still vivid despite the age. And in those images, he saw something impossible. Humans, standing alongside the alien girl's people. Fighting together, building together, sharing knowledge. Daniel took a step closer, his fingers brushing against the painting. This is real?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The girl nodded. "Once, long ago, our ancestors and your kind stood side by side. We were allies, friends. But then, something happened. Something terrible." Daniel turned to her. "What happened?" Her expression darkened. "A great war. A war that nearly destroyed us all." She pointed to another part of the mural, where the images changed. Fire, battles, cities burning, shadows creeping across the land. "The rulers of my people made a decision," she continued. "They erased the past. They destroyed all records of our alliance. They made sure no one would ever speak the ancient tongue again." Daniel felt a weight in his chest. But why? She met his gaze, her violet eyes filled with something close to sorrow. Because they believed it was the only way to survive. Daniel's mind spun with the possibilities. If this was true, then everything people believed about alien history, about humanity's place in the universe, was wrong. Before he could speak, the ground suddenly trembled beneath them. The walls shuddered, dust falling from the ceiling. The alien girl's eyes widened. "They know we are here," she whispered. Daniel's pulse quickened. "Who?" "The ones who keep the truth hidden." And then, in the distance, he heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Not just one or two. Many. Coming fast. The girl grabbed his wrist. "We have to run. Now." Daniel didn't argue. He followed as she sprinted toward another hidden passage. But as they ran, one thought burned in his mind. Someone had tried to bury the truth. But now, it was waking up again. Daniel ran as fast as he could, his heart pounding. The alien girl pulled him forward, leading him through the dark tunnels beneath the ruins. Behind them, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Whoever was coming for them was close, too close. "They're right behind us," Daniel whispered. The girl didn't slow down. "I know. We have to reach the inner chamber before they catch us." Daniel didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing. If they were caught, it wouldn't end well. They turned a corner, and suddenly, the passage opened into a massive underground hall. The ceiling was high, covered in ancient symbols that glowed faintly. Large stone pillars lined the walls, and in the center of the room stood something incredible. A large stone archway, covered in the same strange markings as the ruins above. But unlike the other carvings, these were fully lit, shining with a deep blue glow. Daniel felt an invisible force pulling him toward it. "What is this?" he asked, breathing heavily. The alien girl turned to him. "The last memory of the past. The final proof that our people were once one." Daniel took a step closer. The archway pulsed, as if reacting to him. Strange symbols flickered in the air, forming patterns he didn't recognize. But somehow, deep inside, he understood them. He reached out, his fingers inches away from the glowing surface. "Wait," the girl said, grabbing his arm. Daniel stopped, confused. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, her face full of uncertainty. "If you touch it, there's no turning back. The truth will be revealed." Daniel looked at her, then back at the glowing archway. "I need to know." Before she could stop him, he placed his hand on the stone. The room exploded with light. A powerful holographic projection burst into existence above them. It showed humans and the alien race standing together, speaking the same language, sharing knowledge, fighting side by side. Then the images changed. War, betrayal, a great conflict that tore them apart. The final image showed a group of alien rulers standing in a circle, speaking solemnly. The alien girl gasped. They erased it all. Daniel watched in stunned silence. The rulers had made a terrible decision. They had rewritten history, erased all knowledge of their past with humans, and forbidden the language from ever being spoken again. That's why they don't want anyone here, Daniel realized. They're hiding the truth. The girl clenched her fists. And now we've uncovered it. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the hall. The pursuers had arrived. Armed guards, dressed in dark armor, surrounded them. Their weapons glowed with energy. The girl turned to Daniel. They can't let us leave. Daniel knew she was right. They had discovered something that was never meant to be found. A guard stepped forward. You have seen what was forbidden, he said coldly. Surrender. Daniel glanced at the alien girl. She gave him a determined look. Running was no longer an option. It was time to fight for the truth. Daniel's heart pounded as he and the alien girl stood in the center of the glowing chamber, surrounded by armed guards. Their dark armor shimmered under the ancient light, their weapons aimed directly at them. The air was thick with tension. One of the guards stepped forward. His voice was cold and commanding. You have seen what was never meant to be seen. Surrender now. Daniel clenched his fists. He wasn't a fighter, but he knew one thing. If they were captured, the truth would stay buried forever. He glanced at the alien girl beside him. Her violet eyes burned with defiance. She wasn't going to surrender either. Without warning, she grabbed his wrist and whispered, "Run." She yanked him forward, and in the same instant, the chamber shook. The glowing archway pulsed violently, and the symbols on the walls flickered. A loud, deep humming sound filled the air. The guards hesitated for a split second, just enough time for Daniel and the girl to sprint toward the exit. Stop them, the guard shouted. Energy blasts fired past them, hitting the stone walls with loud explosions. Dust and debris rained down as they ran through the ancient tunnels. Daniel's lungs burned, but he forced himself to keep going. Where are we going? He shouted. There's another way out, the girl replied. If we reach it before they catch us, we can escape. More footsteps echoed behind them. The guards were gaining on them. The tunnel suddenly split into two paths. The girl didn't hesitate. She grabbed Daniel's hand and pulled him down the left passage. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to squeeze through a tight gap between the rocks. As soon as they slipped through, the girl turned and pressed her palm against a hidden panel. The wall behind them sealed shut, trapping the guards on the other side. For a moment, there was silence. Daniel took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling rapidly. That was close. The girl nodded, but she wasn't smiling. They won't stop. We need to move. They continued deeper into the ruins, the glow from the ancient symbols lighting their path. Daniel could still feel the strange energy from the archway pulsing through him. He had touched something powerful, something the rulers of this world never wanted anyone to see. They erased the truth, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The girl slowed her pace and looked at him. Yes. But why? Daniel asked. Why would they erase their own history? She sighed. Because they were afraid. Daniel frowned. Afraid of what? She turned away, her voice quiet. Of what we used to be. Before Daniel could ask more, they'd reached the end of the tunnel. A large stone door blocked their path. The alien girl stepped forward and placed her hands on the symbols carved into it. Slowly, the door began to slide open. Beyond it, Daniel saw a breathtaking sight, a hidden valley filled with ruins even older than the ones above. Massive statues of both humans and aliens stood side by side, carved from the same stone. It was undeniable proof that their two races had once been united. Daniel's eyes widened. It's all here. The girl nodded. The rulers destroyed the history in our cities, but they couldn't erase this place. They couldn't reach it. Daniel stepped forward, his hands shaking slightly. If the truth is here, we have to show the world. The girl looked at him, her expression serious. If we do that, we will make enemies. The ones in power won't let this truth be known. Daniel clenched his fists. He had seen the guards, seen the fear in their eyes, but he had also seen something else, the truth waiting to be remembered. He met the girl's gaze. Then we don't stop. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. The truth had been hidden for centuries, but now it was waking up. And they were the ones who would bring it back. Daniel stood at the edge of the hidden valley, staring at the massive statues of humans and aliens standing side by side. The air felt heavy, charged with the weight of history. This place held the truth, proof that their two races had once been allies, that they had fought together, built together, and shared knowledge. The alien girl stepped beside him, her violet eyes scanning the ancient ruins. We found it, she said softly, the last memory of the past. Daniel nodded. But now we have to make sure the world knows. A deep rumbling sound echoed through the valley. Daniel turned sharply. The stone door behind them was opening again. The guards had found them. The girl's expression hardened. They won't let us leave with this knowledge. Daniel felt his pulse quicken. Then we don't give them the chance. She pointed to the far side of the valley, where a narrow passage disappeared into the cliffs. There's another way out. If we can reach it, we can escape into the mountains. Daniel didn't need to hear more. They took off running, their footsteps kicking up dust as they sprinted through the ruins. Behind them, voices shouted commands, and energy blasts sizzled through the air, striking the ground around them. A shot hit a nearby statue, exploding it into dust. Daniel ducked and kept moving. The exit was close, just a little farther. A sharp pain shot through his arm. He stumbled, gasping. A blast had grazed him, leaving a burning sensation on his skin. The girl grabbed him, pulling him forward. Keep going. They reached the passage and rushed inside. The tunnel twisted and turned, the walls closing in as they ran deeper. The shouts behind them grew distant, but they didn't stop until they burst out into the open air. A steep rocky slope stretched ahead, leading down into a vast forest. The girl took a deep breath. If we make it to the trees, we can lose them. Daniel nodded, ignoring the pain in his arm. They scrambled down the rocky path, slipping and sliding but never stopping. The sound of pursuit faded behind them as they reached the edge of the forest and disappeared into the dense shadows. For the first time since entering the ruins, silence surrounded them. Daniel leaned against a tree, catching his breath. His mind raced. They had found the truth, but what now? The rulers of this world would never allow this knowledge to spread. The girl turned to him. "You said we don't stop. Do you still mean it?" Daniel looked at her, determination burning in his eyes. "Yes, we have to tell the universe what really happened." She nodded slowly. "Then we will need allies. People who believe in the truth." Daniel exhaled and clenched his fists. "Then we find them." The past had been buried for centuries. But now, the truth was in their hands. And no matter what dangers lay ahead, they would make sure the galaxy never forgot again. Their fight had only just begun.